Zizou.
Oh, let's go.
Let's
We're
go.
we're alive, boys.
Welcome all to TurinGiants presents The Scoop, your go-to resource for all news with regards to transfers and I guess management and coach rumors about Juventus to get a little dose of truth of what's really happening behind the scenes. My name is Zach, your host, and as always, I'm joined by Frederic, from who we get our inside information, and the man, the myth, the legend, Farhad himself. Gentlemen, how are you?
Boys, evening, day, afternoon, whatever. Wherever you're watching us from on YouTube.
Thanks a lot for the people tuning in. Thanks a lot for another episode of The Scoop. It's been a while. Glad to share it with you guys. And, despite the fact that we've had a couple of rough days, I feel it's only mandatory that we, um, give some news out to the people concerning the things, the cogwheels in place in the Juventus machine that is hampering a bit. But we'll
You
try
bring
to
up
make it through.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. When the transfer market ended, we committed to doing, maybe one of these a month, just to track maybe some rumors that were going on. Well, after the most recent defeat, and we're not going to talk too much about it because Kevin and Frederic did a wonderful job breaking that down for you in an episode yesterday. But after that, the coaching rumors heated up a lot. And so we felt it appropriate to do some digging, again, using Frederic's contacts, see what is the conversation going on behind the scenes as to Igor Tudor's future. And while we're here, of course, we will talk to a few potential incomings, a few potential outgoings, as always. And because this is alive, we will answer your questions throughout. Our main man, Farhad, will feed those to
I'm
Frederic
on it, boys.
throughout the episode. So please, if you are in here live, please drop your questions in the chat, and we will get to it. For folks new to the Scoop, we did get a lot of new subscribers since the end of the transfer market. This is sort of the TurinGiants transfer market show. What we do is we pull in the names of, well, in this case, coaches and players, and we assigned temperatures corresponding to the odds that these particular incoming or outgoing players will in fact leave or join Juventus. From a housekeeping standpoint, gentlemen, did I get it all?
Um, Hello, everyone. Again, I just wanted to say hello to Yorio, the dedicated number one fan, Nicolas, Luca, and Mitch, and everyone else. These are just who commented. The rest of you who are watching, welcome.
Awesome. Well, Farhad, let's share the screen. We'll get into it. We're going to
Let's
start
do
with
this.
a brief note from Frederic on the board of directors because there's going to be a shakeup, isn't there, Frey?
There is going to be a shakeup, and I think a lot of people have heard about the news of our uh, general director stepping out and will be replaced by a good friend Kamoli. But Exor, who has the majority of shares, introduced a number of candidates, and I can go on, and those names won't ring any bells. But there's like the CFO of Exor in there,
Mm-hmm.
also the general president of LVMH Italy, and a lot of people, but nobody within the footballing world, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of for me a big disappointment because you'd love to see someone on the board of directors with some knowledge about how the world in general works. So there are, if I'm not mistaken, 8 names that have been put out by Exor to be members of the board of directors, and two given their 11.5% of shares by Tether. So safe to say, whoever gets elected, whoever will be on the board of directors, there is literally nobody on the list with football knowledge or a football background per se, which is something that scares the bejeebus out of me.
Yeah, from a board of directors perspective, considering the sort of the caretaker role there to ensure the organization kind of is moving in the right directions, like I think that would have been the perfect role for Del Piero before being president. Get him on the board of directors, get him to be able to provide that insight, knowledge, and just sort of general guidance to the board in order to make sure that Juventus goes in the right direction. That allow him to get a lot of good networking, a lot of good contacts to build up to, and maybe transition into the Juventus side more so as the president. Like someone like him or Chiellini, who have that deep connection, but are also kind of on the younger side in their journey up the management tree, kind of struck me as being maybe good candidates. You're saying that we're not going to see anything like that when the
Uh,
board of directors are announced.
Apart from Komoli, who will, of course, will if he will be elected as general director, will assume a spot on the board of directors, and he has some experience and some knowledge about football as a whole. But apart from that, no one. And the thing that bothers me most is you can put Komoli there, but the board of directors, you have to look at it as another organ outside of the usual structure of Juventus,
Hmm.
meaning that you can be a good general director sporting wise, but you have to stay in touch with the financial and marketing side of things as well. That's why I would opt for somebody with some football experience in that board of directors as well, because if we're going to look solely at financial standpoints, then we'll end up in the same loop that we're in now.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell, and let's not, get down with criticism because we had a lot of that over the past few days. But I thought it was noteworthy to considering that we come from a board of directors with a lot of football knowledge. In the past, Andrea Agnelli with Pavel Nedved and such. Whereas to now, apart from Komoli, there will be no one.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to talk anymore about it. Truthfully, to our listeners, we whenever we talk about like deep finances and or board of directors backroom type stuff, um, the audience generally their eyes glaze over. So we'll move on
Board
after
of
the,
directors.
yeah, definitely more like yeah, exact. Thank you, Farhad. If for some reason that is something y'all want to get deeper profiles of these folks, drop us a note and we can, Frederic says he has the names, we can talk about it, but at least for now, we'll jump into what I think more people are interested in, and that we're going to start with the coaches. So after the defeat of the weekend, the rumors about Igor Tudor's future at Juventus being short-lived heated up a lot, as well as sort of a shotgun of names that came out of either folks that people alleged were being linked to Juventus, or people that folks wanted to see at Juventus. And so it's our goal here, and Frederick's been working the phones over the last 24 hours to give you kind of an insight of where things stand with the list of coaches on the screen in front of you. And I guess this is a good time to remind folks who are listening, who are not attending live, that there is a visual component to all Scoop episodes. So please, if you're on Spotify or YouTube, you can, and you're not driving, you can glance down and see what's going on the screen. Alrighty, we got to start with our current coach, Frederic Igor Tudor. What
Yeah, before
are
we
the? Okay, go
bef-
ahead.
before we get into this, I want to just sketch out the situation for the people back home, because there's two sides of Juventus at this point. There is one side, Comoli and the whole management, who've decided that Tudor's not fit and they want to replace him. They pitched that idea by our good friend John Alcon, who said no, because Alcon thinks it's a bit foolish to pay three coaches at a time.
Because it bears repeating, if folks are not aware, that we are still paying Thiago Motta.
Yeah, we still are,
Dream gig.
unfortunately. So that's the biggest concern of Alcon at this point, apart from the loss of face that we have because we're paying three coaches at once. Also, the fact that, will this be sustainable financially and will it have the positive outcome we're hoping for? So now it's a bit up to Kamoli to convince our owner to, draw a line in the sand, get whatever needs to be done. And within that fragmentation within the division between Comoli and John Alcon. There's also a bit of a fragmentation between as to who would be the successor of Igor Tudor.
Hmm.
So it'll be clarified throughout the list. So I'll just jump right into the list, and the chances of Igor Tudor being our next coach or him finishing the season as a whole are very very cold.
Not ice cold,
Uh,
but cold, very unlikely, but not impossible.
no, I'd opt for ice cold personally, but given the division between Alcon and Camoli, I
Hmm.
think it's safe to say to keep it at cold because every media outlet that I've checked today is already replacing Tudor and thinks it's normal that he's gone by. Some people say after the Real Madrid game, after the Lazio game. I wouldn't rule out carrying forward with him, depending on the results and our performance, not only the
Hmm.
result but the performance. So, should he be replaced, which is a big should, um, Luciano Spalletti is being backed by Chiellini.
Hmm.
Chiellini knows Spalletti very well. Chiellini is the only one in management who is backing the Spalletti name. And there's also good reason for it because Spalletti, they've had talks already, they've discussed, but Spalletti wants a 1 year contract with an option for another, depending on certain criteria being met. So it's a basic 2 year contract.
Hmm.
Um, Comoli doesn't want that at all. Comoli wants somebody who will get us through the season, who will make sure objectives are met. The objectives are, and I'll say this once again, fourth place minimum. That's all we care about. Qualification for Champions League, while taking the time, while having a bit of room and space to look out for a potential new coach with a clear vision. So he doesn't want to make the same mistake he did in the summer,
But
being
isn't that a mistake in of it itself, Frederic? I mean, if you're bringing on Spalletti to be a stopgap for this year, you then went. Mota was effectively a stopgap because he didn't finish the season, and then Tudor was to be a stopgap, and then you Spalletti was. I mean, at one point, are we going to find a coach for the long haul? Like, if I mean,
Comoli.
am I crazy here? Is like we should be
No, no,
looking
no.
for we should be looking for a coach to build around.
It makes a lot of sense, but Comoli's done with risks in terms of managers. He wants somebody, he wants a big name, he wants a proven guy with a track record, he wants somebody who's capable to take us back. So, given the fact that there's literally no one available at this point who you would entrust with that, job title,
Hmm.
I think he's stagnating a bit and trying to gain momentum and gain time to make a good decision. Also, let's not forget our board of directors, which we talked about earlier, is not formally set up yet,
Hmm.
which made things all the difficult. Because if you're like Komoli, who's expected to be our general director, if you come up with a short list and you present that to your board of directors, and you know that that short list or the people in it will make our performances better, will make our revenue stream much better, or results, then of course the board of directors has no choice but to put in a hefty investment, because if
Hmm.
a new coach comes, they'll want to bring players with them as such. So Kamoli's a bit on the cautious side, and he doesn't want to make the same mistake again. And in all fairness, I think we made a number of mistakes that don't need repeating anymore. On the other hand, I talked about Chiellini. We also have a good friend Modesto who is
Hmm.
backing Raffaele Palladino. Why is he backing Raffaele Palladino? Because Modesto thinks that given the players that we have, Palladino is the one that can bring out the most of them tactically and even physically. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where Kamoli stands on both of them, to be honest. But there have been talks with Spalletti and Palladino, like
But
real talks, not with intermediaries or whatever. Talks with Spalletti and Palladino, how they, what their feeling is about Juventus and the prospect of them eventually perhaps coaching Juventus.
In Spalletti, we all know long history, a lot of games coaching Roma. Obviously, his tenure at Inter, which will be much talked about if he were to join us. His Scudetto winning season at Napoli and his sort of failed stewardship of the Italian national team. Palladino, though, is kind of a Motta hire. They're about the same age. He had the 1 or 2 years at Monza. He had the really good year at Fiorentina. But he's young. He doesn't have experience. Is exactly what he doesn't. He isn't fit the profile that you said Camoli wants. Yet we have him at warm as opposed to Spalletti's room temperature.
Yeah,
Why do we currently have the
the,
odds that Palladino is our coach slightly higher than Spalletti at this time?
because Palladino is given his availability to finish out the season with Juventus and nothing more. He did ask for um, sort of a bargaining chip that if he should surpass the standards or the criteria we set, that there is room for debate. And it's not unfair because imagine we hire Palladino and he wins us the Scudetto. It would make
Well,
absolutely no
that's
sense.
that,
No,
that
I
that's
know it's
that's extreme, right? That's extreme.
that's of course, but I just mean to say that if he overperforms and you can see dynamism in the team, and you can see us improving, and you can see that his vision aligns with what Kamoli has set out, then it would make absolutely no sense to sack him and find somebody else because the risk of somebody else doing worse than him is a lot higher. Risk assessment. You have to take into account several
Yeah.
things that come into play. So I'm not sure. I'm not convinced about Palladino myself.
Well,
Why?
he doesn't have he doesn't have any experience. It's similar to Mozza, right?
Neither did Conte, but like Palladino for me is somebody who is a bit of a mix between Tudor and Motta in terms of man management. He has the potential positives that Tudor brings. He has the vision, the footballing vision that Motta has. Is that a
Hmm.
good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But as a whole, you need that dressing room management as well as a whole. And I just can't see Palladino being the one that tells Kenan Yildiz what to do at a certain point, or tells Thuram how to move up into midfield. I don't think this is what the team needs at this point. I think the team at this point needs somebody, a veteran who weathered a lot of storms, who can just keep our ship afloat and make everybody's noses point in the same direction.
I think
An
one
Iron
important
General, if you will.
Yeah, I think one important thing about Palladino, though, like Tudor, maybe not to the same extent, but Palladino does come from Juventus, played with the youth team, played with the senior team, and so that is a connection that what only Tudor can say on this list.
Fun fact: he's a Serie B champion with Juve.
There you go. But I think that's important. We've talked a lot about that with regards to Tudor versus Malta last year, and so I think it's an important call out that he's not going to step into this club not understanding or appreciating the history and the expectations. Right? He won't. There will be no question or confusion there.
The only thing which I do know is that Comoli was very, very pleasantly surprised when Palladino said, "I'll take the challenge on. I want to prove myself." It shows hunger, determination, grinta, if you will. In that respect, he's gained a lot of respect. He's gained a lot of respect from Comoli, but it's also not my choice. I'm just
Yeah,
here stating out the facts as they happen, but I can't see the Palladino thing work
yeah.
in the long run, and I want to coach for the long run. As of now, I'm tired of switching, and but that's another thing.
All right,
People in the
let's.
comments, we will get. Sorry, Zach.
Yeah,
People
go
in the
ahead.
comments, we will get to your questions. Do not worry. I am collecting them. Zach.
Yeah, so let's move on to two coaches from the Bundesliga.
Yes.
We don't hear a lot about Juve getting coaches from the Bundesliga, but we got Edin Terzic, who spent, I believe, his entire coaching career, 6 or 7 years in the Dortmund organization. Served multiple roles there, not only as manager, but I think he was a technical director for a little bit. And
Yeah.
then Marco Rosa, who hopped around the Red Bull chain. I think he did both Salzburg as well as Leipzig, and spent some time at Mönchengladbach as well as Dortmund.
Yeah.
So both free agents, both successful coaches with bigger name teams. Where do we stand on these two free agents from the Bundesliga?
Well, as temperature wise, Terzic is cold. Why is Terzic cold? Because he practically offered himself to Juventus numerous times. They had a bit of an internal debate, and they decided that Terzic wasn't the man for Juventus. As to what the criteria were, I don't know, but it was like Modesta Chiellini and Comoli at the time agreeing this is not what we're looking for.
Which is
So
kind of interesting because Dortmund comes from the sort of a culture of bringing in young players, getting them to work together to kind of be, make the whole greater than the sum of its youthful parts. That seemed to be, to me, just stepping back, but a potential fit between, our current, Dortmund and how our team is currently built.
yeah, but I think in the case of Terzic, I think the risk, because as Juventus, if you're bringing in a coach not from Italy, that's a huge risk in itself. Even if we brought in Jurgen Klopp, so to speak, it'd be a risk because that's not up to Juve tradition. That's one side of the medallion. The other side is, do you think that if you assume that coach, that they will always gain not only performance or results, but also respect? And that's where Terzic, I think, missed the spot, because if you look at his time over at Dortmund, he was openly criticized a lot, not
Yeah.
only in his role as coach, but also in his role as technical director, because he brought in numerous players, some that were very expensive as well. They just didn't perform, they didn't gel. And that's the issue we're having now. So I think, his latest stint wasn't all that successful. And I think that withholds Comoli and Co. from giving it a stab. So, or taking a stab at it. As opposed to Marco Rose. Marco Rose is very on our radar. So I put him as room temperature for now, which is not saying a lot, but I'll give a bit of hindsight behind that. We spoke to Jurgen Klopp, contacted him. He was not interested, but he did recommend Marco Rose because, as you know, Jurgen Klopp is now part of the whole Red
Hmm.
Bull machine. He suggested Marco Rose. As a matter of fact, Marco Rose was a name that was very highly regarded by Comoli in the past already.
Hmm.
He thinks that Marco Rose is one of the, well, better younger coaches with a clear vision. Also, Marco Rose is somebody who works with a lot of algorithms and, is a more of a modern take on football.
Hmm.
So they gel. However, I can't see it happening for now, because should Rosa be interested or be a serious candidate, he would have to be able to just finish this season, no if, buts, or maybes. And I don't think that Rosa is somebody who wants to make like the stopgap, fill in a stopgap position at this time, and is looking for something more stable and more future driven. So,
And that makes
um,
sense. He's kind of the outlier when we talk about age of these coaches, because you got the old guys, you got Spalletti and Mancini are both in their 60s. You have early 40s for Tudor, Terzic, Malta, and Palladino. And then you have what Marco Rose is about 50, right? He's
yeah,
he's managed Dortmund, he's managed RB Leipzig, he's managed them in multiple competitions, and I think he's probably looking to take that next step to be, hey, make me the man. Well, you have guys like Palladino who are young, who are like, give me a chance. And the Spletties, or older guy might be like, yeah, I'll take a year. I'm old and tired. So
yeah. I
like,
mean,
I'm not surprised that Rosa would be wanting a little bit more,
for
considering where
me,
he's at and where he's coached.
if I look at the names on the list, like I'd make a whole other list if it were up to me, but I'm not, I'm not part of the board of directors.
And this is
But
not our
from the
opinion,
list,
folks. This is not our,
no,
yeah, these aren't our
but
opinion.
I'd go for Marco Rose. That's just my opinion. From all the names that we, see here, I'd go for Marco Rose.
Well, I'll make sure to send that email to Juventus, Frederic. I'll let them
Thanks.
know. We'll see if we.
I already sent one. It's It's my friend Comoli at JuventusFC.com
Yeah.
if you're looking for.
You know, everyone Farhad, have you not noticed that everybody within Juventus is Frederick's friend? My friend so and so. I'm wondering
I
who isn't
from
his
from
friend.
episode 1, I stopped asking. I'm just trusting the man and his connections. I do not question it. I only make it go out into
No,
the
feel free to question it because I took a blast on our episode yesterday. I took a lot of criticism because I was very, let's say, not as objective on our player Locatelli. But I'm open to debate and whatever. In the end of the day, we're all just people. We don't earn money with our opinions or the things that we hear or know. But I'm always open to suggestions and opinions. So
debate show. Got it.
So
Next.
I see a couple. I see this name popping up already, or being the topic of hot discussion in the chat. Let's move on to the
Yes.
next one, Roberto Mancini. Before we
ice
get to
Ooh.
cold,
everybody's favorite,
ice cold. Thank God, ice cold for Roberto Mancini. Why is Roberto Mancini ice cold? Somebody that was suggested through his management or people, that know people, and Chiellini as well. Chiellini thinks of Roberto Mancini as somebody who's mature enough to guide the ship through the storm that we're going into right now. But a lot of people within Juventus management say no. Why do they say no? Because, well, we all know Roberto Mancini, we all know his past, we all know where his heart lies, but that's not the big question here. The big question is Roberto Mancini capable of rebuilding something? That's the big question mark. And a lot of people at Juventus don't think that he is. And if you get Roberto Mancini in as a stopgap, he'll be able to tear the dressing room apart as a whole, meaning he'll have to start from scratch again next season.
Can I
So
quote Skippy in the chat? Keep that Inter dog Mancini away from our team.
that was
Damn
basically what I was saying. Like
right. That's why I
I'm
didn't use
gonna
your words.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. If Roberto Mancini becomes our next coach, I'll officially stop supporting Juve for the time that he is our coach.
Well, good thing he's
no,
ice
no,
cold.
no, no, you won't. You'll just do it. You'll just do it with a noted objection. Um, I don't think you could stop Juventus, Frederic.
Probably not, but
Let's finish.
it was cool to say.
Let's finish the list, and then I kind of want to talk holistically about it. If you were not tuning in earlier, Thiago Motta is still on our books, so it's theoretically possible that we could slide him right back into the role, right, Frederic?
Very much so. It's something that John Alcom prefers.
What?
Oh,
Yep.
damn it.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Uh,
man.
John Alcon, in his contacts with Kamoli, uttered, yeah, basically this option and said, well, he said, I'm not quoting because it's very difficult because I have to translate back and forth between my sources. But basically, he said, well, he didn't do that bad of a job, and it went wrong with the working together with Giuntoli at the time. So Alcon thinks that Giuntoli was the main issue as to why Thiago Motta didn't succeed at Juventus. And given the fact that he's writing his checks every month still, makes him wonder if it's not possible to get him back and give it back a go. Comoli, after regaining consciousness, said that this is not a very good idea. Um, due to several reasons that we can imagine
But that's
right
why we
now.
have it cold. While everyone in chat's having an aneurysm, Frederic. That's why we have Thiago Motta
No,
for listeners
yeah,
only. We don't have we despite what you just said, we have him as cold,
yeah.
which is very unlikely that he will be coming back.
It also is very important to state that Komoli and Alcon are contacting each other several times a day regarding the whole situation, regarding potential names, regarding the progress that we're making, not making, or whatever. So they're very on top of the situation. But it's the first time that I felt some criticism coming from Alcon towards Komoli
Hmm.
in those text messages that I received. It was shall I say it hunky dory, Farhad, in the months
I love a
past.
good hunky dory.
But now there's a lot of tension between the sides.
And that's not
And
necessarily a
Kabul,
bad thing, though. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, any organization's tension is the origin of tension is a disagreement of opinion. It's what you do with
of
that
course,
tension. Do you work it out to find the best solution, or do you let it divide? Right. I mean, we're ultimately going to find out that answer, aren't we?
of course, especially when our good friend Kamoli becomes our general director, meaning he'll have the final say in a lot of matters. That's when we will really get to judge on as to what is going on and what will happen in the not so distant future. So, regardless of the storm that we're going through right now and the tension that's been building up, I think it's fair to say that there's somebody within Juventus that will take the responsibility and will have to put out, decent performances or decent results.
Can we quick sidebar, Farhad? Can we implement a Turin Giants my good friend counter? Just to sort of just kind of have those
You
ticking
got it.
up in the corner. You know what I'm
Alessandro
saying?
Del Piero is sitting here with nothing to do.
Yes, Alessandro Bel Piero. We need to put him to work. He'll be our my good friend counter. All right, I want to stop here. Okay, the there's been some notes. Well, no, put that back up here, Farhad, because I want to talk holistically about this list. In leading up to the Tudor conversation, there's always who are we going to replace him with? These are not our opinions, and we did not make this up. This is what the management of Juventus is currently looking at, folks. This list that we just walked through. When you kind of filter out the colds, you got Mancini, Molta, Terzic, and Tudor gone. Okay, so we're looking at Spalletti, Palladino, and Rosa. Right? Go Frederic first. Like, are you happy with this list? Is this
No,
one that gives you confidence, or is this like
no.
settling for? Yeah, okay, you go ahead.
I think this is settling for because we're literally once again with our back against the wall. And I'm not going to speak badly about Komoli because I have a lot of respect for what he does and the way he approaches things. But he's
Would you say
now
your
caught.
friend?
I didn't. Um, he's caught between two fires right now because he has to, stick with his daytime job, being the person that he is, the whatever his role is, before being appointed to general director or CEO, whatever you want to call it. So he still has to answer to Alcon, meaning that you're free to do what you want, but not too much. And that's very difficult. So he has to, take into account the things that Chiellini thinks is important, Modesto, Alcon. He has to juggle all these things around without being the final person who can decide. My feeling, and this is just my personal sentiment, if it were up to him, he'd sack Tudor right now, go with the cheapest option available,
Palladino.
whatever. I would assume so, and make a lot of work about bringing somebody in next season who will guarantee or almost guarantee us progress. He didn't have the time to do that. Conte, Gasperini were on the short list. He came in, he had to follow. We also thought Conte would be a good fit given his history. He received a no. They received another no from Gasperini because Gasperini, contrary to very popular anti Juventino thoughts, didn't say fuck off. But Gasperini gave his word in May to Rome, and he didn't want to break that. Gasperini said to Comoli, if I didn't already reach an agreement with Roma, I'd happily do it. So the guy just had bad luck. You're back against the wall. You give Tudor, the benefit of the doubt, and Tudor, regardless of the material he has at his disposal, is not doing a very good job. So what do? Do you go terra bruciata, meaning that you'll burn everything and you go tabula rasa, or do you think, okay, let's keep the focus, let's see what we can do, let's just get us to fourth, and then I'll have final say on everything, and I'll take the decisions and the responsibility. But this list, for me, as a Juventus coach or potential Juventus coach, as if you tell me that this is the list of people who are going to train next gen, I'd say, yeah, sure, why not? But for the first team of Juventus, I'm sorry. It's time to stop with experiments. It's time to stop with bizarre modern football day holistics. Just bring somebody in who can make the team play a decent amount of football and make us win. This team is never going to win the Champions League, but this team should be very capable of finishing second or third in the current Serie A. Get a coach who ensures that. And if you want to look beyond that or go further than that, you want to make that European step, bring somebody else in after a certain amount. But, just don't go switching any way the wind blows just because you try a bunch of options that are not working because they're not well thought of, in my opinion.
All right, I'm going to ask Farhad the same question, but before I do that, chat, just I want a quick yes or no. Yeah, does this list inspire confidence or encourage you? Yes or no? Just dump it in chat while Farhad answers the same question.
So the question is, what exactly?
When you look at names like Palladino, Marco Rosa, or Luciano Spalletti, are you encouraged? Do you
Oh
like
no,
this?
I haven't been encouraged since late 2020s. I mean late 2000 aughts. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a like Frederick said, this is really disheartening to see as a Juve fan. But I mean, like, what are we doing? Are we keeping a coach until the end of the season now? See if it works out. Some people are suggesting just keeping Tudor. But for me personally, I mean, out of this whole list, Spalletti would kind of make sense. Chiellini, the two baldies, they got together, and I personally know how bald people stick together. Uh, but Terzic, I was looking at his record, and Dortmund finished third, second, and fifth with Dortmund and Bundesliga. I mean, Spalletti would be kind of more or less stable coach and someone that players sort of know. So that's pretty safe choice.
Yeah, the chat is, it looks to be almost unanimously no, except for Ozymandias, who is not the biggest Tudor fan, it seems. So yeah, I think at least in the sample size we have today, people aren't entirely enamored with the list in front of us. And, I think, Frederic, if the worst does come to happen this week against Real and Lazio, as some of us are suspecting will happen, and the rumors heat up, we'll probably try to do another one of these episodes, maybe just coach specific in the near
Yeah.
future as the sort of the picture reveals itself.
It
Alrighty,
bears.
is there any? Go ahead, Frederic. While you answer
No,
Farhad, just dig through the chat, see if there's any questions on coaches that we maybe have missed and that we can address before we move to the next slide. Go ahead, Frederic.
I just wanted to underline that it is definitely Kamoli's goal to bring in a big name coach. So whether or not we're going to continue with the stopgap thing this season, to me, is a bit irrelevant. But Kamoli wants to bring a huge name in, and he wants that coach to be backed as well in terms of investments.
Mm-hmm.
So Kamoli is very, very well aware of the fact that if we bring in a big coach who earns, let's say, 10 million net a year, which is a big bonus in order to get somebody to coach your team, but he's also willing to back that in terms of potential players, their wages, their transfer fees, whatever. So the plans are there, the cross is there. Now it all needs to be headed in. But I'll move on to the questions because
Yeah.
What coach questions do we have in the chat, Farhad?
Well, first of all, Lavezzi is saying you guys deserve much more followers, and I'm with him on that. Mitch is congratulating Zach on his pronunciation of Mönchengladbach, and everyone is super nice. So Jurgen, okay, Jurgen is asking, is it possible to give Jurgen Klopp everything he wants, any amount of money, and any players that he wants?
yes, very possible. Money wise, yes. Jurgen Klopp just doesn't want to coach anymore. He's been through that. He was very charmed by the proposal of Juventus, but mentally he's not able to coach anymore, and that's that.
I
I don't
mean,
think.
he's mentally able. He just doesn't want to.
Do you think?
I mean,
Side question: do you think he made enough money to last a long time if he
he's
lives
still he's,
more or
he's
less?
still making money. He's still making money. I
Yeah,
mean, he's still be on the payroll of Red
yeah,
Bull.
yeah.
He's some. I don't know what he's doing. I don't think he even knows what he's doing or what his job is. But he's getting paid a ton of money to do
Hmm.
f all. So yeah.
Another dream. They're hanging out with Mota together. Quick, maybe 30-second answer. Azem is asking what went wrong with Tudor at Juve. I feel like it's a kind of a nice little change up and find out what went wrong. And
I will
is he
say,
even? Yes,
Frederic, sum up the really long discussion that you and Kevin had yesterday in 30 seconds, and then we can just say, for if you want further discussion on that, and I know this will be something we'll continue to discuss in the future, but if you want more discussion on that, please tune into the really good post game episode from Kevin and Frederic
from
yesterday.
yesterday.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. I think it's just to put it in perspective, views not aligning. I think Tudor was our emergency backup situation last season. We were put with our back against the wall. We had no choice but to extend him or offer him a job, given the fact that other priorities didn't come through. But you started, from the bottom already because Kamoli didn't have faith in Tudor or the project as a whole, was
Mhm.
forced to work with him, decided, let's give it a go. Let's put the egos aside and see what it brings. And of course, if you then, in the games that you play, out of the 9 we played, there was one fairly convincing game that we put out in terms of possession, in terms of style of play, in terms of pressure. Well, then, 5 draws and a loss is unacceptable. And I don't think it's Tudor. It's because it's Tudor. I think any other coach with Kamoli at helm would be under a lot of pressure right now.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
All
What
right. Thank you.
what I'd say, Farhad, is let's track some of those other coach questions because we do have to get through a list of potential arrivals in January and some just a few potential departures. So why don't you clock a few of those questions? We'll save them to the end because I don't want to lose them, Farhad. Is that cool?
Ozymandias is asking question for Frederick. Is it true that Juventus asked Gasperini, tell us why you want to coach Juventus? And this is the reason he went to Roma. I don't understand the question, but if you can make sense of it.
I
Um,
think he meant, and that was something Italian media sprouted out, that he got like a sort of an interview by Kamoli. He was put on the spot as to why he would be a good coach, and he took offense to that. But that's not true. The thing that Kamoli called his manager, put him through to Gasperini, and Gasperini said, "I'm very charmed by the proposal, but I already gave my word to Roma in May, and I'm not the type of person to break his word, so I have to decline." And that's that. There are no soap opera dramas behind it or whatever people trying to blow up. He already gave his word in May or the beginning of May, I think, when Atalanta secured their
mhm.
Champions League position. And that's that. Not no
Gotcha.
more, no less.
Yorio is asking, and a couple other people asking anything on Inzaghi. That would be
Frederic
very
almost just spit
interesting.
out his water.
I mean, I find no. It's not that I'm laughing at the question in itself, but looking at some of the media outlets and Twitter, Instagram, and whatever, like everybody's a potential coach. I mean, it's amazing to see that not even my cat is being named as a potential successor to
I'll
Tudor. So,
take it.
um, no, Inzaghi was never brought into consideration. Why not
Gotcha.
Inzaghi? We had talks with Inzaghi last season, but the views didn't align. Was
Gotcha.
nothing
Gotcha.
financial, nothing. It was just not good fit. So I don't think they'll get back to that. I hope not, because I don't think Inzaghi is able to get this team out of the mud. What we
Zach, can
need
I
now
do one
is
more?
One more, and then we're moving on.
All right. So just because Mitch asked this twice in two different versions, he wanted to ask, what if we ride or die with Tudor at the end of the season, and then we go for Deschamps after the World Cup?
me personally. I'd say no to the Deschamps, but I'd first and foremost say no to a ride or die with Tudor, because if we choose ride or die with Tudor, it'll be die. We won't make fourth with Tudor. I'll bet my house on that. Why won't we make fourth with Tudor? His inability to be a bit more forthcoming tactically and flexible, and B, the fact that Tudor, when put under pressure, self implodes. So even if we don't fire Tudor, we keep him, it'll be a matter of time before he says, F it, I'm out. And then you're really with your back against the wall because you have no alternatives. And every coach you approach knows that your coach has left himself so they can demand what they want. And
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
not a good bargaining situation. So I think carrying going forth with Tudor is sporting suicide in my opinion.
Gotcha.
All right, well let's move on. We will be taking questions throughout, and of course at the end. But let's get through a list of players. Right, that's usually what we spend our time on these episodes. Obviously, coach being the hot topic for today, but there are some players that we have been linked with.
Guys,
Uh,
2 months into 3 months into the scoop, and you're already doing the coach edition.
that hey,
Saddening. We
we
predicted that. We predicted that,
we
Zach and
did,
I.
we
We
did. But
we
we're
we
not forcing it. That's just the nature of
no.
the beast right now, Farhad. We go where the news takes us. And the
Yeah.
news takes us to these six names as potential additions, or at least kind of what's circulating in the Juve news sphere. And so we're here to kind of give you some context on it. Let's start with Ayub Buwadi, the midfielder from Lille.
Yeah, very much on Juventus's radar, very much on Comolia's radar as well, since a couple of years already when he played, I think what was it, the U19 team? I can't remember. Um, but I have to say for now, room temperature. Why? Because there are a lot of teams on Buadi as a whole. I think he can choose from whichever top side he wants to join. I don't know how Buadi feels about Juventus because that's a decisive factor. I hope he's a Juventus fan, and maybe in the future we can sign him. But for now, I'd say I'd put him at room temperature. But we are monitoring him very closely.
Yeah, he's a young, good player there in France, and we're going to an even younger player, Brooke Norton Cuffy, an Englishman, if I'm not mistaken, playing for Genoa right now.
Yes, for Genoa, he's on loan at Genoa. If I'm not mistaken, or he's sold to Genoa, but Arsenal get a percentage if he's sold to another club. And fact of the matter is that Norton Cuffy was already on Giuntoli's list last year, and he was also on Comoli's. The fact that he plays in Italy, that he plays fairly well in Italy as a defender, being not a native Italian, is a very good pro in his defense. He still has room to grow, a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of potential there. And Juventus really, really, really like him. They like him so much that they're going to try to bring him in January already.
And so we put that one as a little bit more likely at warm. Let's move to, I think, four names that every football fan should recognize, at least from Juventus. Three of these four we talked about a lot over the summer, didn't we, Fred? Well, we'll start with Kim Min Jae, currently at Bayern, previously on Napoli's Scudetto winning side. What are the odds we bring him in?
I put him at room temperature. There have been a couple of intermediary talks between his agent and the people at Juventus. Why Kim wants to leave Bayern Munich. Of course, the transfer sum would be hefty. He's willing to leave on a loan as well. And he really wants to return back to Italy. He really felt good in Italy. Of course, we need a defender. So,
At least one.
the 1+1 is very likely. However, and this is the however, Kim wants to move to side on loan with a possibility to stay there for a longer term. And Bayern are known to not be the cheapest of resources to get players. And of course, his transfer sum at the time was pretty hefty as well. So we're looking at a price tag around roughly 35 to 45 million. I don't know if that's doable or possible. So that's why I put him at room temperature, but he's being closely monitored, as is the next person, Nahuel Molina, which I would not give the benefit of the doubt because he practically said no to us next summer.
Hmm.
Now he asked his manager to see if there is a potential deal to be made with Juventus, given the fact that he lost his spot on the Atletico team.
Hmm.
He's more often on the bench than not. And Juventus were the most concrete team interested in him last season. So yeah, they're still in talks, not as advanced, but there's still some going back and forth. So maybe we can get him on the cheap on loan in January. If that should be the case, I think he could become a priority target due to the fact that he can play on the position that we need a certain number of
Hmm.
players, and the fact that he would be fairly cheap with that loan with an option to buy. It'd be cheaper than he would have been in the summer. So that's a pro for him as well.
And that he already struggled for playing time at the end of last season too. So it's a I'm not sure it would be a move as much as he's finally opened up his availability for us. Whether that I'm actually excited about, considering he's really struggled for game time at an Atletico side, and I'm not sure that's exactly the type of player we want to bring in. But we'll
Same.
see. Speaking of a player, I'm not sure we really want to bring in. Let's talk. Let's talk SMS. We talked about Sergei Milinkovic-Savic during our Thursday spot on Bepe's Let's Talk episode series. I think all three of us, as well as many in the chat, were not interested in seeing SMS, at least this version of him at Juventus. What is the current status of those rumors?
Well, it's still on room temperature. It's basically the same story as with Molina. We approach some players and we still keep contact with them. However, his club is trying to force out an extension of his contract. And I have a feeling that Milinkovic Savic is using Juventus at this point to get the most out of his contract extension.
Okay, so it's
Boo.
one of those deals. Okay.
Can I just say that I would love to see him at Juve. I've always wanted to see him at Juve. He's only 30. Eager.
See him. What version of him, Farhad? His version of
I
3 years
mean,
ago, or this current version?
the fact that they want an extension from him says something, and he's eager to come back to Italy. I've heard somewhere that it's not the greatest atmosphere for him. He wants to come back. Just personal opinion. I would love to see him back, hungry. But
Me
Mitch,
too, just not at
hold on,
Juventus.
you say hungry. You say hungry. Isn't that the whole big problem with SMS? Is like the guy's big. The guy's got tall. He's physical. He's got a great touch. He scores goals, but he has motivation and attitude issues. Isn't that what we heard year in and year out with him? Like, am I misremembering, Frederic?
No, you're not, because if you put SMS, the current SMS, regardless of his form, just the character, into this dressing room, which is already a time bomb in itself, then there's there's you literally. I mean, we're doing a poor job by announcing the contract extension of Rugani days after our Como defeat, but this would be an even bigger, reverse card move. If you put this guy into the dressing room, it would be. I mean, he's experienced. He has all these pros that you mentioned, Fard. So I can see where you're coming from. But believe me, and I've heard stories like, he used to play 10 kilometers away from me. Unbelievable, unbelievable. That's not somebody you want in your team. That's not somebody that can create a team mentality or fight for a team. That's the last thing you want in this squad right now, in my opinion.
Before we get to the last name, I do want to shout out the folks in chat. We've had a very active chat this episode. I appreciate all of you, Skippy, Ahmad, Mitch, and we were joined also by Kevin, who is part of the TurinGiants family. Thank you for joining, Kevin. I've shouted out your wonderful episode therapy session, shall we say, with Frederic after yesterday's defeat.
Yes, well done. 2 episodes in a row. dedication.
How many draws in a row? That many.
The-
That many therapies
What,
led to loss.
when you see me on the screen this much, you know something's afoot, and you
Yeah.
know it's yeah.
All right. I believe, Frederic, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we were the first program, literally, to report the connection between Juventus and Bernardo Silva over the summer.
Yes.
Obviously, this was a move that was not going to happen immediately at the time, but it was sort of one that Juventus was laying the groundwork in to bring him in next year as a veteran, skilled player that could provide some of the intangibles that Skippy in the chat is calling for, experienced players and leadership type. Where do we stand on those sort of that groundwork with regards to
Well,
Bernardo Silva? And specifically, the slide here says for January arrival. So why don't you talk us through January arrival for him, as well as depending on what you say there, on what the summer might look like.
well, I think Bernardo Silva is very, very much attracted to playing at Juventus. He has a couple of offers from other teams, which is no secret nor a surprise. But he's somebody who mm, chooses emotionally. Let's leave it at that. And he always had a soft spot for Juventus. Before his move to Manchester City, there was also something going on between him and Juventus. Didn't work out. I don't know the details. So he's very inclined to join Juventus. However, if we want to make that move in January, and that's why I put him at warm, it'd have to be something that comes from both sides. And while Silva stated in the summer that he wasn't fond on leaving City already or in such short notice, because remind you they lost De Bruyne this summer,
Mm-hmm.
so he wasn't comfortable with leaving the ship. He considers himself as the captain and wants to leave the ship last man standing. He now is more open to the idea or entertaining the idea of joining Juventus even earlier. And I know for a fact that Camoli has been since then in several talks with his management, seeing what is possible to bringing him in prior to the summer. So if I put my money on potential arrivals, it'd be Norton Cuffy and Bernardo Silva, because A, something we desperately need in terms of their position, B, their availability to join Juventus, and C, um, not that big of a cost. Of course, Bernardo Silva will cost a lot in terms of wage,
Mm-hmm.
but bear in mind that we'll lose a lot of the wages that we are
Hold
paying
that.
right now. And
Don't spoil it. We're about to get to that, Frederic.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
let's
Sorry.
let's move on to kind of spoilers. Who is the biggest wage earner on our team? Let's look at potential departures in January. Of course, Mr. 22 and change million in gross, Dusan Vlahovic.
Oops.
Farhad, what is going on over there?
Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Buongiorno himself. Thank you, Farhad. Dusan Vlahovic and his 22 and change million a year. Frederic, what are the chances he leaves in January?
I'd put him as warm. Why? Juventus is doing everything they can to get him into the spotlight. That's also one of the facts. While he's getting a bit of playtime still,
Mm-hmm.
because they want to put him in the spotlight. They want to be able to sell him without him leaving on a free.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I heard is that he's not. He's open to the fact of leaving in January if the right offer arrives or the right team arrives. So we're doing everything we can in order to offload him in January still and receive a bit of coin for him. Um, but then here comes Jusan's attitude. It would mean that it would have to be a club that is of a potential high level,
Mm-hmm.
A, and willing to give him the salary he demands. So it's not up to us. It's not even up to the team that wants to buy him or get him. It's partially up to Dusan. And this is a situation we created at Juventus.
Yeah, yes, we did. We the deal he was given.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot. We don't need to expand on it though.
No.
Is a mess of our own making.
We don't have any leverage. We don't have any leverage, so we'll just try to put him in the spotlight occasionally. Hope he does well. Hope that that offer arrives, and I think if we get the chance, we won't hesitate or blink twice to offload him.
Let's move to another player who currently is out of contract in the summer, who we have not spoken nearly as much about over the last 6 months. What's the current status of Weston McKennie?
Well, there are no talks concerning a contract extension, so it's safe to say that that's not going to happen. Do I think we'll offload him in January? I fear. So I put him at room temperature. Why? We're short in midfielders. As we know, Weston is somebody who's very flexible in terms of roles. I mean, he could even play as a right wing back, if I'm not mistaken. So the big question is, what Weston do we get?
Hmm.
He's not very consistent. He's not a player that quality wise always gets the best out of the team or himself. So I think we'll part ways with him. If it's going to be January, I'm not so sure.
I do think his touch has somewhat let him down so far this year in his few appearances. And I'd like to, I don't mind Weston leaving at the end and saying thank you for what he's done. He's been an important, if not somewhat ill-treated, versatile player for us. But I feel like that makes more sense to wish him well at what seems to be a natural split than say Dushan, where I think the departure will be a little bit more acrimonious. Let's talk about your favorite player at Juventus. And this will be the last player we talk about before we get to any questions from the chat. So I'm going to be handing it over
Uh,
to you in a second, Farhad. But let's talk. Why is Toon Coop Miners on our list, Fred?
because we've had it. We've had it with Koopmeiners.
We or you or both?
I think both. I think everybody who has a black and white heart has had it with Coop, but also management in terms of they don't see any progress. Now I have to say, and I'm not. I'm just being objective here. His performance the day before yesterday was not that bad. I think it was one of his best performances we've seen in a Juventus jersey. And Kamoli has given his time or giving his availability to see what Coop does up until the winter break. If by then he doesn't see or he doesn't feel as if Coop Miners will become a pillar of our squad and will become the Coop Miners we know from the Atlanta days, then he's free to leave, even with, and this is very, um, very important to underline how important the whole Coop Miners deal is, even if we lose money on him. I mean, it's a no-brainer. There's nobody that's gonna give us more money than we put in. But even if we lose, say, 10, 20 million on the deal, Kamoli wouldn't hesitate.
Hmm. That's really an indictment on Coop's time here. If no club, every club. I mean, shoot, our tour's still on our books because we don't want to lose money on it. If you're willing to lose money on a player, it means that you have really given up on their ability to contribute.
Also, sorry,
Mhm.
just wanted to say, whereas Coop had no or almost no offers in the summer during the summer mercato, he has quite of them, some of them at this point. I don't know what happened, or maybe his manager just went God mode or something. But there are three teams that are very interested in procuring his services.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how he stands on those teams. I know one of them is Roma, and I know the other is a Premier League team, but I didn't get the name from my source. But it is a Premier League team. So let's see.
Well, needless to say, we put him at room because what management side is kind of done, but until one of those other teams produces something more concrete, we're sort of status quo. Is that
Yeah,
sort of a summation, Fred? Okay.
yeah,
All right.
and
Well,
also,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
last thing, the departures and incoming transfers are now placed on hold in a sense that we don't know what our starting point will be or when that will be. In the sense that If something changes on November 7th and we've already acquired a new coach, then I mean we can start, really picking out the people that we need or how we need them or when we need them. As to now, it's a bit, put on the side because there are more urgent matters now that need to be addressed, which I think is fairly logical. But the thing is, Komoli, along with Chiellini and Modesto, made a couple of short lists with players. I'd be very surprised if we don't see a lot of names popping up soon in the middle of November for our January transfer window.
Real quick on that note, I mean, we are talking players. Obviously, what coach you bring in, if you do sack Tudor in the near term, would have some bearing on that. Additionally, we don't have a sporting director who naturally would contribute and or be the primary accountable party for those moves. Is there any news on that front?
Well, it's still a debate that's up and running, and I think, and my source thinks the same, is that it's due to the fact that we have to get our board of directors formalized first in order to bring a sporting director in. I think it's basically just bureaucracy at its finest. It's also maybe something that Alcon demands that he needs to have a stable board of directors first, so that the potential sporting director or the name of the sporting director will be approved by all members of the board of directors. Because it's a bit of a sensitive issue if you now decide to bring in a sporting director and then you show up at the board of directors meeting on November 7th, where 70% of the board is against acquiring person X, Y, or Z as a sporting director. So timing wise, it pretty much sucks. But I think in the long run, if we have people with a bit of knowledge and if we have people that trust in Kamoli as well, because that's something they need to do if Kamoli becomes a general director, I think we'll see a good fit. But we've been through this managerial changes, a bunch of them over the last 5 years. So I'm not sticking my hand in the fire for that one. But
Mhm.
I expect things to move up pretty soon after November 7th.
All right, let's close the slides, Farhad. We've sort of finished the main content of the program here. I think we can take whatever questions are in chat before we close out for the day. So Farhad, why don't you hit us with the questions and we'll go from there.
There's questions, there's comments, mostly comments from people. But first, I want to mention we just had the largest audience for any Turin Giants live ever.
Hey, thank
Congratulations.
you everybody who's joined us. Thank you.
Yes. So, a comment from Mitch. Mitch is very active here in the comments. I don't know how long you guys want to spend on each question, but here's something that he said. We still could not renew Yildiz, sign the coach, no sporting director. Why are we not able to do anything? Why are we not able to get anything done at Juve? Um,
It's not the same reason. I think he's aiming at Burgess. Burgess is a done deal. It's just bureaucratically there are a lot of things to resolve. Um, I'm not sure about the why precisely, but it's going to be done, and I expect it to be done after the 7th officially. As to the sporting director, I already answered that. I think it's the same. It's linked with Burgess and the board of directors. As to Yildiz, it's just the plain fact there are a couple of 100,000 euros, I think 500,000 in between finding the consensus, but the consensus basically is found unofficially. And I think Yildiz will officially renew after the winter mercato. As to
Beautiful.
why, because if you renew him, he signs his contract. A part of that contract will not be in the books for this year because financial years and footballing seasons they don't align, so you have to be very careful as to when you renew who, and that's also why we renewed Rugani. I feel
Lower
because
lower salary.
yeah, lower salary. Not only that, the lower salary, but the fact that you a have one of the center backs already set up, be it as a reserve player, I don't care what his role will be, but you have him already. B, you can put a part of the salary of things yet to come. You can put it on the books, but you have no transfer expense. Whereas if we let Rugani leave transfer free, which would be the case at the end of this season, then you'd have to find somebody else in that position. And even if you get somebody from the Dutch second league or anything, you'd still have to pay him his transfer fee.
Mhm.
And do you get anybody better than Rugani for that price? That's something that's, in between things. Also, our financial fair play investigation that's going on. Imagine Rugani leaving and UEFA telling us you can't bring any more players in, then you're left with another big hole in center back, which you can't mend that season. So I think it's a bit of Juve covering their asses, albeit not with the best player we had in years. But given the numbers that I see surrounding Rugani, I don't think it's something that's worth, closing the books over.
So a couple questions here. Thank you, Frederick. Mohammed is asking, will they also wait for November 7th to sack Tudor, or can it happen earlier than that?
I'm not, timeline. It could be like if Kamoli gets up angry in the morning and he wants to fire him, he'll make the call to John Elkan and he'll be fired. I don't think Kamoli's that short-sighted, even not, considering we play Real Madrid the day after tomorrow. I don't even think that will impact his decision. But from my opinion, I think if I'll leave the Real Madrid game out of the equation because it's not important because we already consider this a loss. If the Lazio game ends
Oh,
up,
that's so sad.
There's a loss,
no,
but Frederick, there's a loss and there's a loss. I mean, there's a difference
yeah, yeah.
between 1-0 and 5-0.
The the thing is, if you play Lazio days after you played Real Madrid, and let's put things in perspective here. Imagine we get thumped 4-0 by Real, which is not a stretch. Morale is very low. You decide to fire the coach, but you have a must-win game a couple of days after against Lazio, with probably a new coach, or maybe not even a new coach. The
Yeah.
Lazio game is more important than the Real Madrid one. Let's leave it at that.
By the way, speaking of Real Madrid game, I do want to create a live stream for that one. We haven't done one in a long time. Could be fun, getting you guys involved and watching the game together. I think it'll be fun. I'm home that day. So, question for yeah, Zach is answering people in the comments as well. Just sort of an opinion. Skippy's asking Frederick, do you think Kamoli will bring us back? If you want to just give a quick opinion on that.
First, I'll just start with
I
a
don't-
yes or a no. Commitment, Frederick. Yes or no?
There you go.
I'll put it. I'll split it into two. Yes, if that's a big if he gets the support he needs from Alcon on every level that he needs, whether it be financially, management wise, I don't care. No, if he decides to do a, let's say, final season Agnelli move and thinks he's omnipotent. I
But he
think
can't. But he can't, Frederick. I think that's part of the leadership structure they're building, right? With Modesto there, with Chiellini there, with whatever sporting director there. It's not
I
just.
think
It's not just Giuntoli. Giuntoli was just the only dude.
yeah, but Giuntoli wasn't general director. And that's the big difference. This man will become our general director, meaning he'll be in charge of the day-to-day business, even much more as the president, because the president at this point is just something like a mayor in a city. He doesn't decide things necessarily. He's there to, be the face of the team. I think a general director has a lot more impact. And the day that he becomes general director is also the day that Alcon says, do your thing. You have my blessing. So that could go both ways. Because if you think, oh, I'm general director now, nothing I do is wrong, and I can, buy this player, I can sack that manager, I can do this and that, and it blows up in your face, then it's done. So I think Kamoli can, but I don't know if he will. And at this point, I don't trust anybody within the whole Juventus Venn diagram, organogram, because they haven't proven anything yet.
Mhm.
Nobody within Juventus has proven their worth. I hope he does. I'm praying to God he does, because I think I can speak for everybody. We've all had it.
A couple of Austrians here in the in the chat asking about Alaba, how Real Madrid want to get rid of him. Is that even an option? Obviously, again, speculations from you.
Who would sign him? Juventus or J Medical?
Okay,
And let's not forget
that answers it.
Alaba. I always thought of Alaba as an amazing player, a bit of it
He
in
is.
decline the recent years, of course. But let's not forget his insane wage demands. I mean, Alaba's not the type of person to say, "Hey, I'm coming out of the shadows with a lot of injuries, with a lot of this, with a lot of that. I have to,
Hey,
maybe
Juve,
earn a
do you
bit
need
less."
help?
No, 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 no. I don't think Alaba is a national hero. All respects to Alaba, but I think in terms of what he can bring to the table for Juve and what he demands from Juve, I think those two views are a bit far away from each other. So I
Yeah,
can't see that happening.
I think it's hard pressed, as quality as he is, to bring in that wage with his history, with his injury history. If he was an Iron Man, maybe you consider bringing him on the high wage, kind of like with the Bernardo Silva situation or something. But I think with the injury history, I don't see how that would.
Someone's suggesting that him and Milik can bunk together at J Medical.
Is Milik even
Milik-
at J Medical? Is he
No,
is he in Poland?
no.
Like, where is he?
Well, I
He's
keep telling you guys, I read on Transfer Market, it literally says under Milik, unknown injury, and the projected return date is just blank. There's nothing there. So it's no one knows.
I with Milik, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and anger a lot of people within Juventus. The latest, the last surgery or the last injury Milik had was fumbled by the Juventus doctors. They didn't perform the surgery good, well enough. And I think him extending his contract, not playing, was Juventus saying, let's keep this on the hush hush. We'll pay out your wages. We'll even extend your contract at a lower fee. Just shut the fuck up, stay in Poland or wherever the fuck you want to stay. We'll pay you, and that's it. That's
That's Milik
word
for you.
around the Juventus campfire.
I'm replying to somebody in chat, but then there's
So am I.
yeah,
Kind of
there's
dead air here.
Sorry.
You're good.
But to go back to the question that you asked earlier, Frederic, do you believe Kamoli can turn us around? And I'm going to say yes, and with no ifs or buts. I think what you need is a cohesive vision and strategy that can permeate the entire organization. If you believe him from his introductory press conference and building up the right culture and alignment with a robust managerial team, as well as finding the right types of players that are reflective of that culture, I think the answer is yes. And then you bring in folks from around the world who are specialists in their field, like Burgess, to holistically redesign our fitness and nutrition routine. I think that's emblematic of a healthy organization. I think the problem that we have is that you need to give a organization, certainly from that high strategic level, time to implement and or for us to feel the effects of its health. And we're unfortunately in the situation where we have problems now. And so it's where the urgency of action is outpacing the usual time that a healthy organization would drive its impact, that could create a friction that might frustrate him. I think if we're able to give him the time for us to see the benefit of these folks at their respective roles and bring it in, I think we'll benefit from it. And that's sort of a long answer, also tied to sort of the Milik and Zagrova and Alaba equation is, get Burgess in here. Let's revamp this medical team that has just, I think everyone agrees is underperformed. Let's get them doing the job the right way and get our players, either keep them on the pitch or get them back quickly.
So
Yeah.
from what I posted about Burgess on Instagram at TurinGiants, by the way, and a bunch of Australians were in the DMs,
Mhm.
and they were just praising the guy. They were saying he's such a guru. He needs to start as soon as possible. He was able to do such magic with teams and give him championships, and certainly a big move. Really, really,
Yeah.
really looking forward to having him on.
Of
Me too.
course,
Me too.
in long term, and like Zach said, like we can't expect miracles on the short term, even though we need one right now. But that's what I said. If you give Kamoli time and the means to do well, I think he'll do well. But will he get that time? Will he get the means? I have to wait and see.
It's going to be a long season, boys and girls.
It's going to be a long season. I wanted to highlight Mohammed's question. He said, "Do you think the lack of Italians on the team is a factor that got us, et cetera, where we are now?" I think the lack of diehard Juventus players is we basically eliminated the whole core. We had worse teams, but we had the likes of a Chiellini, Buffon, Del Piero still there, showing the younger guys, the new guys, how it's done and with to what end. And we're lacking that right now. So I wouldn't per se call them Italians, but I'd call them Juventus thoroughbreds. Nationality is of no concern to me.
Yeah, the whole team just seems to be unserious about everything, about this social media, and there's so many complaints from fans always, and nothing seems to be getting done. Sadly, even running the official fan club, it's so unorganized, and sorry if I blowing them up like that, but yeah.
All right, Farhad, I'm giving you the power. One more question, and then we're going to sign off, folks. Farhad, I let you choose.
I think we're all done. I mean, mostly questions and people are chatting in between each other, which I love. I love that people are finding us as a Juventus community. Um, what, just off the top, Jurgen, I didn't read the question, but let's see. What interesting tactical decisions do you miss the most? The ones that were enjoyable to watch and unexpectedly effective. If you want to take this question, yes, no, I'll come up with
Yeah,
another one.
yeah, sure. I think tactical and Zag is our tactical guy, so I'm gonna let him speak afterwards. But I feel that if you do something, you intervene tactically, it always leads to a certain result, whether that be a good result or a bad result, good football or not good football, for me is irrelevant. What I want to see is a tactical change have an impact on the game. And if you just, like Tudor is doing right now, just throwing up Hail Marys, then, of course you can win a random game against Inter. But if you decide to look at the weaknesses of the counterparts or the teams you're playing, exploit them by some tactical maneuver, even if it's ugly, then you get my praise because you intervened and you came out with a result. Ugly, not ugly, I don't care. We need results first in order to get ahead of ourselves, in order to grow. And we're lacking not only results, we're lacking tactical awareness, EI the coach, and we're lacking creativity and passion.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
going
can
to
forgive those things, but not the tactical thing for me is unforgivable. As a coach of Juventus, I'm sorry.
I'm going to be real simple with it. I don't need to get into, and I've made a few, very tactical, independent videos myself. But I think in this team, it's very simple, because we can't even get into the deep tactical stuff with Juventus. This team right now, you see absolutely no patterns of play that are translating from training. And from a very simple standpoint, you'd love to see, even when it was boring, negative Allegri, you could tell when there are patterns of play or certain things done on the pitch that these players drilled on in training. and you just cannot see it with this Juventus. And that's what's so disheartening for me is forget the little things. They can't even do the big things right. They clearly have no clue how to play together. And I think for folks who routinely listen to TurinGiants and our spot with Beppe on Thursdays, I've been sort of saying that we're at a crossroads, waiting to see which way the knife would fall. And clearly with the defeat against Como, it went the wrong way. And I think it's indicative of a team that needs that change because we can't even do the basics right.
I mean, even the studs, like you saw Conceição slipping 40 times yesterday. You'd think that, he changed boots after that first half, but he just kept on slipping. I mean, we can't even get that right. I mean, and it's stupid for me to say, but it's a fact. We lack almost everything. And on paper, we have a team that should be able to pull off a fourth place minimum in Serie A on paper.
Absolutely.
But if we don't make them gel from whatever standpoint you look at it, be it, within the team itself or outwards from the coach and tactical awareness and things like that, then, I mean, it's of no use. So a change is bound to happen. Will it be the right one? Time will tell. I'm not overly confident, but doesn't get much worse than it has been over the last 2 to 3 years. So,
all right, Frederic, Farhad, thank you. And especially thank you to everybody in the chat. Y'all have been fantastic today. We had a great showing. We had great discussion. We had great questions. I also love seeing not only recurring names. Yes, we recognize you guys.
Absolutely.
But we also love seeing new names. So thank you for everyone in the chat, for folks listening afterwards and at home. We appreciate all of you. Thank you. This has been another episode of The Scoop, and we will strive to continue to bring this type of content, certainly should the heat surrounding Tudor continue to rise. Thank you all, and until next time, as always, Forza Juve.
Forza Juve.